They called it the Age of Faith. But behind that faith marched armies, driven not by God's mercy, but by man's hunger. The 7th century. Deserts stretching endless beneath the scorching sun. Caravans whispering tales of new power rising from the sands of Arabia. Within decades, that power would spill beyond dunes and oases, consuming empires that had stood for centuries. Persia, Byzantium, the lands of the Nile, and the Indus. The world watched the impossible unfold. The desert storm it began with banners of black and white, rippling under a sun that burned like judgment itself. Nomadic tribes, once fractured and feuding, were now bound under one faith, their unity turning into a weapon no empire saw coming. They moved swiftly, lightly, no grand armor, no shining swords, only conviction and speed, and where they came, cities fell like dry leaves in wind. At first, the Persians laughed. The mighty Sassanid Empire had faced Rome and survived. They called these desert raiders barbarians, nothing more. But arrogance blinds even the wise. At the Battle of Al-Qadisiyah, rivers turned red. The Persian elephants screamed, their mahouts slain. Armored men drowned in their own pride. Within a few years, the Persian Empire, a 1,000-year-old civilization, vanished. Ctesiphon, the jewel of Persia, was emptied. Its libraries burned. Its palaces stripped bare. Knowledge, centuries in the making, went up in smoke. The fall of Byzantium's borders to the west. The Byzantine Empire, weary, bleeding from endless wars, faced the same storm. Syria fell. Egypt followed. The cross that once towered over Alexandria's skyline was replaced by a new call echoing through the minarets. Not every battle was fought by sword. Some were fought through tribute, conversion, and fear. Cities surrendered not to avoid death, but humiliation, to buy another day of peace. The conquerors imposed new laws. Non-believers paid heavy taxes, jizya, to keep their faith. Those who could not pay lost everything: land, home, sometimes life. For the first time in history, the world saw an empire built not on bloodline, but belief, an idea sharper than steel. The machine of expansion, the new empire, grew faster than any before it. Within a century, its dominion stretched from the Pyrenees to the Indus. But the real genius lay not in conquest. It lay in system. The Caliphate became a machine. It did not merely conquer, it absorbed. Captured soldiers became slaves. Slaves became soldiers. Tribes became armies. Armies became nations. And at the heart of it all, the tribute dot. From Africa, gold and slaves. From India, spices and silk. From Persia, scholars and scribes. Every nation conquered became a gear in the great machinery of faith and empire. Yet for those crushed beneath it, that machinery meant only one thing: silence. The children taken in the Balkans. The mountains whispered of a darker order, one that stole not just land, but lineage. The Ottoman Devsh. Every few years, soldiers arrived in Christian villages to collect what they called tribute in blood. Boys aged 8 to 10 were taken from their families, converted, trained as soldiers, janissaries. They were forbidden to marry, forbidden to return home. The empire erased their past and forged new identities. Mothers hid their sons in wells, behind walls, in fields. Some mutilated their children, breaking bones or burning faces just to make them unfit for selection. Still, the collectors came, and centuries later, those boys, now hardened warriors, returned to their homelands as the empire's own sword. They didn't even remember the language of their mothers. The slave routes farther south. In the deserts of Africa, another shadow trade flourished, one that would outlast empires. Caravans of men, women, and children walked barefoot across burning sands toward Egypt, Arabia, and the Ottoman heartlands. Many never made it. Those who did were sold in Cairo, Baghdad, Damascus, some as eunuchs for palace courts. others as concubines, guards, or servants. The markets buzzed with voices, merchants shouting prices over the weeping of the captured dot in Aswan and Zanzibar. Surgeons waited. Their thousands of boys were castrated to serve in harems. Only a fraction survived the operation. The empire's elegance was built upon their suffering. Behind every jeweled gate, a silent bodyguard once screamed beneath the knife. The flames of knowledge-wild wealth flowed into the empire. Much of the world's knowledge turned to Ashdod when the libraries of Alexandria and Ctesiphon burned. Entire civilizations lost their memory. Scrolls of medicine, philosophy, and astronomy gone. What survived was absorbed, translated, and renamed. It was no longer Greek, or Persian, or Indian. It became Arabic, and though the world would later call it the Golden Age, few remembered the price paid for it. The hidden truth of power empires never admit their cruelty. They call it civilization. They never confess their greed. They call it faith. They never speak of the broken, only of the glorious. Yet behind every mosque built on conquered soil, behind every palace's marble floor, lie bones, silent testimonies of those erased from history. The conquerors built cities that still stand today, Cairo, Baghdad, Cordoba, but beneath their foundations rest countless forgotten lives. The mirage of unity by the 10th century. The Caliphates spanned continents, a marvel of order, art, and architecture. But within, cracks began to show. Different tribes, sects, and rulers began to fight not for faith, but for power. The same sword that once united the desert now divided it, and as always, it was the innocent who paid the price. The story of conquest is never just about victory. It's about transformation of cultures, of languages, of souls. When the dust settled, the ancient empires of the world were gone. Their gods silenced. Their temples turned to rubble. Their names remembered only by those who refused to forget. Because conquest does not end with death. It ends when memory itself is erased. The storm had passed, but what it left behind was silence. Centuries of conquest had reshaped the world. Borders redrawn, tongues changed, gods replaced. Yet, beneath the victories and golden domes, something deeper lay buried. A quiet kind of suffering, one that outlived swords and empires. The forgotten voice's history remembers the conquerors, but it never remembers the enslaved in the corners of the empire. From the deserts of Sudan to the villages of Anatolia, millions lived as shadows. They built the palaces, tended the fields, and guarded the courts, but their names were never written down. They were eunuchs in royal harems, guards who had no childhoods, women stolen from faraway lands, their beauty cursed to be their only worth. A scribe in Cairo once wrote, "The empire has many hearts, but none that feel the house of silence behind." The marble walls of palaces, life moved like a dream, drenched in sorrow. The harems were not places of pleasure, they were prisons draped in silk. Women from the Balkans, Circassia, Greece, and Africa lived behind curtains, forbidden to see the sun. Some prayed for death, others forgot their own names. A girl from Georgia, taken at 13, wrote secretly on a scrap of fabric, "My body is here, but my soul is still in the mountains." Years later, her words would be found sewn inside a pillow, a whisper across centuries. The machinery of the slave trade, the empire's wealth ran on flesh. Slave markets thrived from Istanbul to Cairo, Baghdad to Zanzibar. Gold coins clinked against chains. Lives were bought, branded, and erased. African captives, men, women, and children, were marched across deserts by the thousands. Half never reached their destination. Those who did arrived broken, stripped of name, faith, and past. The eunuchs who survived castration became symbols of power. They guarded rulers, kept secrets, and ran the palaces men trusted because they were no longer men. The women were gifts. From sultans to viziers, each slave girl was both ornament and offering. Some rose to power, even became mothers of rulers, but never free. For everyone who ascended a throne, 1,000 more disappeared into silence. Faith as a weapon religion had once united, now it was used to divide. Converts were rewarded, the faithful taxed. The line between loyalty and fear blurred with every decree. In many lands, old faiths went underground. Zoroastrian priests prayed in caves. Christians held secret masses in cellars. Hindus hid their gods behind walls, disguised as decoration. The conquerors called it peace, but peace built on fear is only another kind of war. The vanishing tongue's language, the breath of culture, began to fade. In Egypt, Coptic fell silent. In Persia, ancient scripts crumbled, replaced by new alphabets. In India, Sanskrit retreated into temples, forbidden beyond their gates. Children grew up speaking the tongue of conquerors, forgetting the lullabies of their ancestors. A Persian poet once said, "When the language dies, the heart forgets its shape." The weight of time generations passed. Conquest became memory. Memory became myth. The empires that once ruled with iron and gold began to fracture from within. Greed, rebellion, and bloodshed, the same forces they used to rise, turned against them. But the scars remained. Entire cultures now existed only in ruins and relics. The temples that once echoed with prayer now stood hollow, their stones carved with forgotten names. The flames of Zoroaster gone, the chants of the Nile priests gone, the songs of the ancient Persians gone. Silence became the only survivor. The return of the suns and cherries later. History played its cruelest trick. The descendants of those once conquered began to rise again. Scholars, poets, and revolutionaries, seeking the truth buried under dust. They found ruins where cities once stood, statues defaced, books erased. And yet, among the ashes, something still burned: memory. One scholar wrote, "Standing in the ruins of Ctesiphon, empires fall, but the pain they leave behind never does." The mirror of humanity. It would be easy to call the conquerors monsters, but the truth is darker. They were human. They believed what they did was divine. Every empire in history, from Rome to Britain, from Arabia to the Ottomans, wore the same mask: glory, faith, destiny. And behind that mask, the same machinery of control, power built upon suffering. Human history is not a story of good versus evil. It's a story of memory versus forgetting. The dust of ages now, centuries later, the deserts still hold their secrets. Beneath dunes lie bones of slaves and soldiers, indistinguishable, equal at last. Ruins whisper in the wind, and somewhere, perhaps, a single candle burns beside a forgotten grave. That is the true legacy of conquest. Empires may rise in the name of God or glory, but all of them end the same way, in dust. Epilogia voice echoes. Through ruins, soft, calm, eternal, they built empires upon bodies. They silenced nations with fear, but no sword can conquer memory. The candle flickers. The screen fades to black.